Hello, everyone. As promised, this is going to be an update, our first live update, I believe, today. And we're going to discuss essentially the aftermath, what happens next after the conviction of Nnamdi Kanu. We made calls to various locations in the southeast, particularly in Abia State, to find out how people are responding to the conviction. And the report we got indicated that everywhere is calm and peaceful, which is wonderful, because we had feared some spontaneous reactions and protests as a result of the judgment of yesterday. However, things are calm, which is indicative that the people of the Southeast actually want peace. They'll be very happy for things to return to normal in that enclave. So that is the first good sign. But at the same time, we have been very watchful to know what was going to happen next. We knew that Nnamdi would be transferred to prison, and that's what we had predicted. But we were expecting the custodial facility to be somewhere in Abuja, probably not Kuje, for the concerns we have expressed, and which the judge, in his judgment, also expressed. But the news reaching us, particularly from one of Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers, a lawyer Jimako, indicates that Nnamdi has been transferred from DSS detention as a facility to a prison in Sokoto State. Of course, that worries us deeply. I made a post already expressing our reservations and concerns about that transfer. Moving him to Sokoto is extremely problematic for reasons I had previously expressed, but which I can summarize here again. He intends to file an appeal. His lawyer indicated they'll be filing an appeal. And the court responsible to hear his appeal is the Abuja Court of Appeal. That Court of Appeal is located in Abuja. Nnamdi's lawyers are based in Abuja. So keeping him in Abuja will make sense, because he will need to communicate with his lawyers constantly during appeal. Even though during appeal, defendants' engagement or involvement is minimal, because appeal, unlike trial, is strictly on matter of law and record. You don't have testimonies, you don't have the defendant being in court. I will come to that. But the very fact is that his lawyers are based in Abuja. As they prepare this appeal, they will need to meet with him several times. They need to give him opportunity to ask questions, and they need to interact with him constantly. So for the purpose of that, moving him to Sokoto is really problematic. But also, Nnamdi has rights to self-representation. That has been established at the trial stage. He chose to represent himself, and he may choose to conduct his own appeal. That wouldn't be advisable, but he may choose to do so. If that is the case, keeping him in Sokoto will completely frustrate him and make it impossible for him to pursue any appeal. That is a problem that we should be concerned about. Secondly, every prisoner is entitled to visits, continued social support from friends and relatives. So keeping a prisoner far away from his base is going to hinder that continuing social support people in prison are entitled to. They are entitled to regulated visits. People come and see them. That is how they interact with the outside world. That's how they meet family members, ask questions about their children, and occasionally receive their children, their wives in prison. That arrangement is in place. But if you move the defendant far away from his base, you will hinder that social support. You will deny him more or less right to visit of his family members. So it is a problematic thing. Nnamdi Kanu has never lived in Sokoto State, probably has no friends in Sokoto State, definitely has no family in Sokoto State. Keeping him in Sokoto State is essential to make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for his family members to visit him. That is unnecessary, that is cruelty, really. Because you have to understand that irrespective of all our objections and criticisms of his conduct, he is entitled to rights. He's entitled to rights, and those rights must be respected. Even the people in prison are entitled to certain rights. Those rights cannot be taken away without causing concerns for us, for every reasonable person. Furthermore, another reason why he shouldn't go to Sokoto, the nature of Nnamdi's case is centered on his agitation for Biafra, the things he did supposedly in promotion of Biafra. We understand what Biafra means. It means a claim to secede and move away from Nigeria. And it is based on a list of grievances Biafrans, Igbos have against Nigerians, against fundamentalists, Fulanis, all those things. So it will be very cruel to locate him in a place where he'll be surrounded by people who wouldn't like him, people who will view him with suspicion. Even if they don't do anything to him, it creates incredible discomfort knowing that you are surrounded by people you hate and people who probably hate you back. So that is unnecessary, that's cruel. Finally, we don't know how safe Sokoto is from fundamentalist agitations, jihadism. We don't know how safe it is. Okay, so those states have been susceptible to insurgency attacks, and we know even Kuje is not even safe. In 2021 or 2022, Boko Haram inmates broke into Kuje and freed several inmates. So why wouldn't they do that in a Sokoto location? So all these things compounded suggest that he shouldn't be transferred to Sokoto. It is our plea to the government of Nigeria to reconsider the implications of such a move. One, it will increase the condemnation of Nigeria in international community. The atmosphere is already charged. Nigeria is being accused. The conviction of Nnamdi Kanu was mentioned at the United States House of Representatives House hearing yesterday. Okay, and even though I criticize the congressman who was trying to make an issue over the trial and conviction of Nnamdi Kanu. But what's going to happen now is that the voice of that congressman, which has been critical of Nigeria, is going to get strengthened, and it becomes difficult for people like us, me, to criticize him because I oppose. I do not accept. I don't think it is wise to transfer Nnamdi to Sokoto. I think it is vengeance, it is vindictiveness, it shouldn't happen. So Nigeria should consider that. But above all, Nigeria must remember that irrespective of what we think of Nnamdi Kanu, irrespective of our criticisms of him, millions of people follow him. We may think they are stupid, but there are still millions of people. We should be concerned about their feelings. We cannot just sweep them aside. It is the task of the government of Nigeria, now that Nnamdi has been convicted, to take appropriate steps to seek reconciliation, restoration, education, and persuasion. We will expect Nigerian government to reach out to the supporters of Nnamdi Kanu, to the youths of the Southeast, to gain their confidence, to communicate with them, to assure them that Nigerian government is not their enemy, to assure them that government is making efforts to address their grievances and concern, to assure them that Nigeria is a safe country for them, to assure them that they should be part of Nigeria, that they are welcome in Nigeria, that the stories of persecutions and oppression are exaggerated or not true. That's what we expect the government to do. But if the government turns down and picks Nnamdi and relocates him to Sokoto, which is a very brazen, cruel act, that would alienate the youth of the Southeast. That will alienate the supporters of Nnamdi Kanu. The people that are neutral and even critical of Nnamdi Kanu will be forced to take a step back and begin to wonder if they are right, if it's not true that the government is really cruel and against the Igbos. So I suggest that Nigerian authorities should take appropriate steps to return him to prison in Kuje area. If it's not the regular prison, let them fashion out a special custodial arrangement to make sure he's safe and to make sure that he has access to pursue his appeal. That is our position. I hope someone listens to it and does something about it. Now, let us go to the main thing I had planned to do today. I was going to explain to you how the appeal works and what the options Nnamdi would have on appeal. But of course, I was taken aback by the news that he was being moved to Sokoto because it shakes up everything. It shakes up the issue of his right to appeal, the issue of access to justice through the appellate process, and his ability to appeal. It shakes it up. But let us assume that everything returns to normal and he's in Abuja. Nnamdi, like every convicted defendant, every party to a judgment, a lawsuit that has resulted in a judgment, he has right to go and appeal. Likewise, Nigerian government has right to go and appeal. Remember, the government had gone on appeal before. It was government appeal that took the case from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. So in this case, and the Supreme Court remitted the case back to the High Court. Now and again, High Court has reached a judgment. Nnamdi is not satisfied by that decision, the judgment. So his lawyer had said yesterday that within a week, he said, we are moving from here to Court of Appeal. That was some level of exaggeration, but we understood it to mean that they will file an appeal fairly quickly. Okay? And perhaps one of the things they will be seeking in this appeal process as a preliminary matter was to seek that he be transferred back to Abuja. I see that happening. I see the lawyers of Nnamdi asking the Court of Appeal to intervene to order that the defendant, who will be the appellant, should be moved closer to Abuja. Okay? So that's something that could happen. But he does have a right to go on appeal. But what will he do on appeal? What is the purpose of appeal? First and foremost, let me clearly draw a distinction between appeal and trial. At the trial stage in a case, parties present their evidence and argument. There is a reason we call the trial court trial of fact, because that's when facts are presented. That's when evidence are present. That's when documents are presented. All those things are done at the time of trial, the High Court. Part of the way we present evidence is to witness testimonies. Your witness will testify and the opponent will cross-examine the witnesses. That happens. And then there's a judgment. However, when the case goes on appeal, the appeal court performs what we call appellate review. The appeal court is reviewing the judgment given by the trial court to determine whether this judgment complies with the law and reflects accurately the facts. In other words, was this judgment right? To determine whether a judgment is right on appeal is a review. Remember, they are not allowing new evidence. They are not allowing new testimonies. They are not getting any document you try to add after. You don't do that. So what you need to do is the appellate court takes the judgment as it is and reviews the judgment. It doesn't go beyond the judgment. Okay, one quick second. Yes, hello there. How are you? Good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, I think you're right. I know. I agree with you, but hold on. I'm on a live session now. I suggest you join the live session so you can watch me. We'll talk later, okay? Please. That was a call from Italy, somebody who has been following our program and he has something to say. So, back to the topic. The Court of Appeal is reviewing the performance of the trial judge. The Court of Appeal is actually trying the judge. They are no longer looking at the witnesses. You are not going to come to testify. They are asking themselves, is this judgment right, given the law and given the facts of the case and the evidence? You have to know the difference between facts and evidence, okay? But the judges of Court of Appeal, they are reviewing the judgment. Therefore, anything that did not get in the judgment will not get in appeal. Any evidence, any document, any excuses, any explanations you may have, which you did not put in at the point of trial, is not going to come in on appeal. Because for them to evaluate the judgment, it has to be evaluated in the context of the evidence before the judge. So they're asking the question, is this judge right, given the evidence presented to him? They're not asking, is he right generally? So now you are going to understand the implications of making sure that you put in your own defense. Nnamdi Kanu suffered a major strategic setback by not defending the case. He was foreclosed. He was foreclosed. So, if you evaluate this judge, Justice Sokoto, his judgment will be evaluated on what was presented to him. And that was why you have to look at the findings of fact. Findings of fact will help you understand the essence of appeal. Let me show you what I mean. It is quite disturbing when you look at what I am looking at. Okay, let us examine some of the things that came up in this thing. It's very okay. Okay, very well. I'm going, hold on. Okay, now, look at this.
Inciting people to burn, kill, made brokers, inciting people to burn, kill, and collect wealth.
Okay, listen. Listen, I'm going to show you what the judge read out as the findings of fact. Because you see, all these things many of you are saying, especially the uninformed people, that the judgment was written in advance, there is no such thing. The judgment is tied to the evidence before the judge. It is only somebody who doesn't understand law thinks that the judgment could have been written in advance. No. Yes, even if there is judicial corruption, people will suggest to the judge, but judgment are not written in isolation of evidence, because if it is done, it will be easily reversed on appeal. So before a judge gives his judgment, he has to indicate his findings of fact. That is, what are the facts upon which my judgment is based? You must state the facts upon which your judgment is based. You must state the law upon which your judgment is based. You must state the evidence upon which your judgment is based. That is why if you listen to the judgment, you hear the judge talk about the exhibit this, exhibit that, death certificates of people. Because when they said officers died, you can't just say that somebody died. A judge cannot say, okay, somebody died because you said somebody died. You have to provide death certificate evidence. Now, it is your duty to contradict that evidence, to oppose it, to controvert it. If you don't controvert the evidence, if you don't controvert the evidence or the facts of the other side, the trial judge is going to accept that as true. That becomes the finding of fact as a matter of law. So now the problem is, when you go on appeal and you say that the finding of fact is wrong, you have nothing to stand on because you did not provide anything. You didn't provide any contradiction. It would have been better to put on your own position. So when you go on appeal, you say that the judge erred in fact by not giving proper weight to this testimony. So you are asking the Court of Appeal to examine the two testimonies and determine which one should have been given credit. But when you did not provide any testimony, you didn't provide testimony. You didn't defend your case, the case. The judge was asking you, please, put on your defense. Put on your defense. We want your defense. Your defense could just be to go there, call witnesses. Call somebody who would testify that you did not order anybody to kill anybody. That you were angry when you heard that somebody died. Can you imagine if Nnamdi had called a witness and they asked the witness, what do you know about Nnamdi? So I know him. What do you know about him and IPOB? He's the leader of IPOB. Have you ever heard him order to kill somebody? No, he never did that. It was AI. It wasn't his voice. Just say something. When you say something in your defense, you are giving the judge an option to choose your own. The judge may look and say, well, he denied it. And if he denied it, well, you didn't prove it beyond reasonable doubt. Because he raised some doubts. In his defense, he raised some doubts. And those doubts were not resolved. Because in criminal defense, what the defense lawyers do, you have to understand, the defense lawyers are not going to prove anything. They're not interested in proving. It's not their work to prove anything. The defense lawyers are not there to prove anybody innocent because their client is already presumed innocent. They are not there to prove anybody innocent. This is what the defense lawyers do. Okay? I did this many years ago. What we do is to sow the seed of doubt. If you sow the seed of doubt, you begin to walk on that seed, water that seed, and that seed becomes a tree of doubt. And if you do it so well, that seed becomes a forest of doubts, reasonable doubts. The prosecution will lose. Prosecution will lose if there is a reasonable doubt. That is why they say, prove the case beyond all reasonable doubt. All I need to do as a defense lawyer, if I were the defense lawyer on that case, if I was working for Nnamdi, assuming Nnamdi was my client, and I was working on him, my work would be the defense lawyer's work. Forget me. Let's talk about the defense lawyer. The defense lawyer's work is to sow a seed of doubt. If you sow a seed of doubt, that is like banana peels on the road of the prosecution. They will step on that banana peel, they will fall. So that's the work of the defense. But when you refuse to put a defense, you refuse to put a defense, you've got a problem. Because you have nothing as an alternative. You have nothing to counter the prosecution. The judge is forced to accept the prosecution's case as the fact of the case, unless it was so hopelessly impossible. So now, look at how Justice Omotosho dealt with the facts. This is going to be very interesting. I want you to listen now. Listen.
State brokers inciting people to burn, kill, and collect weapons from police officers wherever they see them. That the defendant also made written statements on the same day. He said the defendant admitted founding the Eastern Security Network, and that he admitted making broadcasts where he ordered his followers to ensure that whoever flouts the sit-at-home order be attacked, and they led to the death of many people, including destruction of properties. PW2 further stated that one of the unfortunate persons who lost his life includes Ahmed Gulak.
So now, Did you see what the judge is doing? The judge is reading the facts, the testimonies of the witnesses, what they said, what they produced. The judge did not read Nnamdi's counter because Nnamdi did not give his counter. Assuming Nnamdi had put on his own defense, the judge will read what they said and what Nnamdi said. So now the judge will have to choose. And we can accuse the judge of choosing wrongly.
Made broadcasts inciting people to burn, kill, and collect weapons from police officers. On the same day, he said the defendant admitted founding the Eastern Security Network had told order be attacked, and they led to the death of many people, including destruction of properties. PW2 further stated that one of the unfortunate persons who lost his life includes Ahmed Gulak, the former senior special assistant to the President Goodluck Jonathan, who died on 30th May 2021. Made broadcasts inciting people to
So now you see how it is done. You see how it is done. It was a mistake, fundamental mistake, in a capital offense trial not to produce evidence. If you don't produce evidence, even if your mom is the judge, you will lose. Absolutely. If your mother is the judge and your opponents produce evidence against you, and the judge even told you that you have a case to answer, and you fail to answer that case, that your mom has no choice but to accept the only evidence before the court, the uncontroverted evidence before the court. So that was a big, big blunder. So if you go on appeal and you tell the Court of Appeal that the judge is wrong on these findings, because that's what of things you should do on appeal, that the judge erred in fact by believing these testimonies, the Court of Appeal will say, what else should you have believed? There's nothing else. That was the only thing. That was the only thing, the uncontroverted thing. So it was a fundamental mistake not to go on appeal, okay? I mean, not to put on evidence. So because when you go on appeal, you are going to point at two errors, two types of errors. Error of law and error of fact. That is why the notice of appeal will say that the court erred in law by this. Then you provide the particulars of the error. You explain the error he made. Then you say the court erred in fact by admitting doing this or concluding this. Then you provide the particulars of the error. That is what the Court of Appeal would do. The Court of Appeal would then check, okay, is it true that he made a mistake, he was wrong? What did the Nnamdi's witness say? What did the prosecution witness say? That is how it goes. But now, you did not call witness. When they say, what did the Nnamdi's witness say? Nothing. No witness. What was Nnamdi's explanation argument? Nothing. No explanation. So it makes it extremely difficult for you.
Do humans rule the world? Yep.
It makes it extremely difficult for you to make an appeal. But let me also show you something else that is very interesting. I want you to see how the judge dealt with the issue. The issue of sentencing. I want you to listen. This is the prosecutor asking for death penalty. And there is something very interesting. I don't know if you paid attention. The prosecutor asked for death penalty and argued that that was a mandatory punishment that the law fixed for the offense he was convicted. When sentence is mandatory, the judge cannot change it. So that's why the prosecuting counsel said that the judge has no alternative. Once you convict him, you must impose death penalty. So, but here, the judge exercised mercy and then reduced it. He admitted that there was death penalty. But one thing you have to understand is, it's very, very rare. If the death penalty is imposed, the law must provide guidelines for it to be converted to life sentence. It's very important. It cannot just be up to a judge to choose who to die and who not to die. So I am curious about this. So if they go on appeal, so hold on. If they go on appeal, you may be surprised to see that if Nnamdi goes on appeal, the prosecution may counter appeal. They may cross appeal. In their own appeal, they'll be asking for the imposition of death penalty. And they could be telling the Court of Appeal that the judge was wrong. He wasn't supposed to give life sentence. This is mandatory death penalty. And if the Court of Appeal agrees with him, the Court of Appeal will say, wait a minute, this offense is death penalty mandatory. Why are you giving life? They may impose the death penalty at that point. So it's a very delicate, risky thing. But let me also tell you something. Nnamdi may have other grounds for appeal, which may be strictly on law. And one of the grounds I think he would do was this issue of foreclosing him, foreclosing his evidence. Was the judge right? Could the judge have given him more time? This is something that is bothering me, and I think it's going to come up. Okay, because Nnamdi took on his own defense. My lord, I fire my lawyers, I shall now defend myself. And the judge told him, fine, but continue with your defense today. Nnamdi said, I don't have the documents. And he said, okay, start on Monday. So in the final analysis, Nnamdi was given only 2 weeks before he was foreclosed. One of the things they're going to say on appeal is this. That time was too short. Because even if Nnamdi had hired a new lawyer who had not been part of the old, the new lawyer would say to the court, my lord, I need time to prepare for the defense. We are just in this case now. We've got a whole pile of files to read and to prepare. So please give us time. And the judge will probably give them 2 months. The judge will give a new lawyer 2 months in criminal trial of that magnitude. So to give Nnamdi 2 weeks, is that sufficient? So it could be argued that the decision to give him 2 weeks was too short, and there was no way he could prepare for his defense within such a short period, especially as he's not a lawyer. Another thing is, so they're surely going to say that, and it's going to be a very strong argument because they can't go into the facts of the case. He did not put in any defense. So they're going to use technicality. And that technicality is just focus on the legal question. Was 2 weeks adequate time? There was indication that this man was not prepared for the defense. He came there, he seemed confused. Was that time sufficient? And if the time was not sufficient, then the entire trial could be derailed. So he was railroaded, forced into abandoning his own defense. There was no way he could be ready in 2 weeks. Nobody would be. A case that had lasted so long, so many witnesses, no way. 2 weeks was too short. And if Nnamdi's lawyers hammer on that, they will stand excellent chance. And in that case, it will overcome the issue of him not calling witnesses because they are now explaining why he did not call witnesses. They are now explaining why he did not call a defense because defense was impossible. And then, why didn't he say it? Why didn't he tell the court? Because he's not a lawyer. Why didn't he make proper application for extension of time? When the judge said, I'm foreclosing you, there were a number of things he could do. Instead of asking the judge to defer judgment, he's supposed to be asking the judge for more time for defense. Assuming he had filed a motion for extension of time to open his defense and asked for 2 months, the judge would not overrule him. And if the judge went on to overrule him, the fact that he asked for more time will become a problem on appeal. And the question would be, well, he didn't ask for more time. I foreclosed him, but he didn't ask for more time. And the argument will be, of course, he doesn't know these things because he's not a lawyer. And the Court of Appeal is going to look into the issue of self-representation. Oh, yes, the Constitution allows a person to self-represent himself. But the court must be mindful of the limitations of such a person, and the court's supposed to make extra effort to allow a flexibility for that person to defend himself. Him not being a lawyer, he'll be blundering all over the places, and the court is going to make a room to allow him to make blunders. In this case, Justice Omotosho will say, I allowed him. That's why I allowed him to have consultants. That's why I allowed the DSS to be. They say, well, you tried, but that's not enough. The critical question was, did he have adequate opportunity to defend himself? And that's when you go back to Section 36 of the Constitution. That's actually where Section 36 comes in. Because Section 36 of the Constitution says a person standing trial should be given adequate opportunity to defend himself. So it was 2 weeks. The judge did not even give him straight 2 weeks. On the 24th of October, the judge gave him until Monday. So he couldn't do it on Monday. The court gave him until Thursday. So you see the adjournment Friday to Monday, Monday to Thursday. So he continued to have problems. And then by the 7th of November, he was foreclosed. So now he only had 2 weeks. 24th of October to 7th of November, he was foreclosed. And he did not even have straight 2 weeks. He had 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. He got frustrated and abandoned his defense. Absolutely, that was what happened. He was confused. So he was supposed to be given. He was supposed to be given more time. He was supposed to be given more time. He wasn't given a sufficient time. That's a ground. Another ground that will work is for him, his new lawyer, to raise the ground of ineffective representation by counsel. And what would be an ineffective representation of counsel? When your lawyer failed to do something he's supposed to do. When your lawyer fails to do something he's supposed to do, it is called ineffective representation of counsel. It is a ground for appeal in capital offense cases. Capital offense cases are so serious that the performance of a lawyer becomes important. The only obstacle here for Nnamdi is that one, he had the best lawyers. Towards the end of his trial, in the beginning, he had very lousy lawyers. Then Ezekome came. It was when Ezekome came in that he began to have quality representation. All the representation before Ezekome came in was nonsensical because the lawyer representing him was an IPOB operative. So he was a hailer. He was Otimbu praising him. You don't need a lawyer. Any lawyer praising you is not a good lawyer. So he had Ezekome. Then he fired Ezekome. We didn't understand why he fired Ezekome. Why fire Ezekome? Then he hired a lawyer. Then he augmented a lawyer by bringing in these heavyweights, Kanu Agabi. Then he fired them. So what could be the mistake of these lawyers? Is there any fundamental mistake they made? Okay. Now, because when you go on appeal, especially when you have been sentenced to life, you have to play hard. You have to throw in everything into the fire because you're fighting for your life and you're fighting from a disadvantaged position. You're already down on your back. You got to fight all the way. So what he needs to do now is his new lawyer will insert the defense of insanity. Defense of insanity is credible with Nnamdi. His behavior is evidence of insanity. His confrontational attitude, especially his performance yesterday in court, is a sign of insanity. So the question is not whether he is insane or not. The question is whether it should have been considered as a potential defense. If, objectively speaking, somebody says that the behavior of this man does not look normal, any good lawyer should have considered that he was insane. The question is, your lawyer never discussed your mental health. Your lawyer never requested for you to go for psychiatric evaluation. Your lawyer found your behavior okay and proceeded to defend you in that manner. That lawyer is not providing you effective representation. He's supposed to have gone into that. So the question is not whether he's mad or not. Don't get me wrong. The question is whether they should have considered that defense. And if the Court of Appeal feels, yes, that defense ought to have been considered by a competent, effective lawyer, and his lawyers did not do so, that means that this defendant never had the benefit of representation, effective representation by counsel. That could be a ground to reverse this trial, order a new trial. That's the second ground now. And these are technical, powerful grounds that requires a very sophisticated lawyering. Very brilliant lawyers can come in and surgically tear this judgment apart. Okay, that is the only thing I see that could be used as an appeal, because he can't use his evidence because he had no evidence. He can't use the testimonies of his witness because he had none. He has to go back to this thing. Now, let me tell you what he should not do. He should not bring in the issue of extradition. Rendition is not going to work. He should not bring in this question of repealed law. That is stupid argument. The law was good. The law in force when he committed these offenses was the Act of 2013. In 2022, they repealed that act. But what does it mean? It means that if you commit this offense henceforth, you will now be tried under the new law. It doesn't mean that all the offenses committed in the past have been wiped out. No. Besides, the new law made it clear that everything that happened before can still be prosecuted under the old law. So I don't know who told Nnamdi to begin to shout repealed law. And you know the funny thing, he began to do it after he fired his serious lawyers, the senior lawyers. So who was it that told him that? Honestly, that could also be evidence of ineffective representation of counsel, because any lawyer that told him that is clearly off. Now, this idea of unwritten law, who told him there was an unwritten law? That the law was unwritten, the law was, who told him that? So if he can demonstrate, if the new lawyer can demonstrate that he did not have effective representation of counsel because his previous lawyers failed to pursue the defense of insanity. Two, they misled him into thinking that he had a good defense based on the repealed law theory. They misled him into thinking that he has a good defense based on the unwritten law theory. Those things are instances of incompetency and the lawyers. So now listen to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you that our lawyer is not a good lawyer or that any particular lawyer before is not good. No. That is the game. I'm just explaining to you how it works. In fact, sometimes your former lawyer will deliberately resign so that your new lawyer can make the argument of ineffective representation of counsel. In fact, your former lawyer can even help you by admitting that he didn't do certain things he was so, even if he did them. The whole goal is to get you out. That is the game. That is the game. So don't misunderstand this as condemnation of previous lawyers. I don't want to condemn any lawyer. I would have done things differently if I were them, but I don't want to condemn any lawyer. Okay, our lawyer is a good guy. He got powerful judgments for Nnamdi. He got 2 serious judgments for Nnamdi. And he has been an advocate, eloquent, defending Nnamdi, giving interviews, making sure he's well, interacting with him, cheering him up. Listen, lawyering is a very complicated job. So there is no doubt in my mind that our lawyer is good. And our lawyer gave comfort to Nnamdi. Because your client must feel good. He was there with him, all through. Even after they were fired, he remained the consultant, coming to court dressed in a traditional attire, very funny alloy. But Alloy is a good guy. I'm not here to suggest he did anything wrong. I'm just trying to tell you that if you got to get your client out, you have to use everything you've got. So if the argument of ineffective representation of counsel is going to do it, then use it to do it. That's what I think is going to possibly happen on appeal. Okay? So I think we have touched on it. First move, ask the Court of Appeal to move him back to Abuja. The Court of Appeal may be persuaded if you make very powerful argument. And by the way, if I were Nnamdi, this is the time to bring back, bring back Kanu Agabi. Bring back Kanu Agabi, bring back Ibazu, bring back Etiaba, bring up back these heavyweights, let them deal with the appeal. These men combined will save Nnamdi Kanu. Okay? And the last thing Nnamdi Kanu wants to do is to try to argue his appeal. That was the worst thing he made. And by the way, because the issue of, he chose to represent himself will come up. But he was the one that chose to represent himself. And this is where the insanity argument comes in. Because once you insert insanity argument, it now explains everything else. Insanity now provides excuses. Even his insult to the judge, his cantankerous behavior, telling the judge that God will punish, all those things will become very easily explainable if he's insane. So insanity is the best defense. It is going to, even if you don't succeed completely, it is going to cause people to take a second look at your behavior. But the problem with insanity defense for Nnamdi is, if he asserts insanity defense, he will defeat his agitation. It's a message to his followers that have been following a madman. That will be the end of agitation. And that is why, probably why, they did not want to assert that defense. Because once you come in and say, my Lord, he's mad, and you are saying it to save his skin, you can no longer turn around and tell his followers that this is Onyendu, they should follow Onyendu. They won't follow a mad Onyendu. They're following Onyendu because they said he's a prophet. They're following Onyendu because they say he's a wise man. But if Onyendu becomes a madman, everybody disappears. That would be the defeat of it. So probably, and by the way, I would say to Nigerian government, if Nnamdi asserts that defense of madness, accept it. Because it helps the government's position. It defeats the Biafran agitation. Because their leader has admitted that he's mad. So that may be what he would do to save his neck. But that will be the end of his agitation. That will be the end of his leadership. He will fizzle out. So it is truly a dilemma for Nnamdi. Admit you're mad and save your life, but lose the mission, or hang on to this theory. Now, eventually, Nnamdi will be released. I don't think he will be executed. I mean, he will stay there for a long time, forever. He will be released, but it's not going to be today. It's not going to be tomorrow. Okay? Because, by the way, when he goes on appeal, something will happen. Listen.
I say, sir, as a
this is the argument of the prosecution. The lawyer that led the government, a senior advocate as well, he's making an argument explaining why death penalty should be imposed. Listen.
With all sense of humility, I say, sir, as a prosecutor, that this court has no discretion in that regard.
That this court has no discretion in reducing the punishment to life. That the punishment is death. Why did you reduce it to life? The court has no discretion. Listen.
And that the only sentence that your lordship will impose for counts 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 is death sentence. This court has the power to do so, and with respect must do so. The language of the act is clear, and the court is urged to apply it strictly without deviation. With all sense of humility, I say, sir, as a prosecutor, that this court has no discretion in that regard, and that the only...
Why do humans rule?
So do you understand what is going on? The prosecution says to the judge, you have no discretion to lower the sentence because the sentence is death and you must comply strictly. Why did you make it life? So, of course, the judge explained why he had mercy, of course. And I appreciate that. He even quoted the Bible. The question is not why he lowered it, but whether he could. Does he have the power to lower the punishment? If you go on appeal, this is going to come up. So if Nnamdi goes on appeal now, two possibilities. If he wins, he's trying to get out. If he loses, he could end up with death penalty. It's a very serious gambit that people must bear in mind and must understand. Okay? We are going to continue this discussion in the future. And I want you to understand my role. Our platform is Ekulo Group, which is a social media platform where we discuss law. My goal is to present to you an unbiased opinions of law by way of legal analysis. I am making my experience and knowledge available to you. It is to help you understand certain things. I am not against anybody. I'm not promoting any cause. However, I want peace. I support peace. And in my experience, I have come to know certain things. When I woke up this morning in America, the first thing I did was I put short posts. And I said things which may sound provocative to you. But if only you can stop and think a little bit, you will see that I am right. For instance, I said the Igbos don't need Biafra. No, we don't need Biafra. We don't need Biafra as a physical territory. We need Biafra as an ideology. I'm not asking anybody to forget the history of the Igbos. I'm not asking anybody to forget the culture of the Igbos. I'm not asking anybody to forget the suffering of the Igbos in the 60s, the pogroms, the persecutions, the civil war, and the continued discrimination. I'm not asking you to forget it. And I'm not denying that those things occurred. But let us embrace these things as an ideology, as a relic of history, as something we remember. We don't need a physical territory that narrows us. Nigeria is a large market. We need room to operate. We need to engage in agriculture and farming in Benue and Niger State. Niger State has more land than the entire Southeast. Who is going to farm that land? Who is going to build on that land? Who is going to do that? It is part of our country. It's a blessing to us to have such vast territories. If you create the territorial Biafra you want, it causes problems for you. It means that when you cross River Niger going to Lagos, you have to first stop and take your passport to an immigration office. That will also happen to you when you cross Sokoto going to Abuja, Benue State. That will also happen to you when you go to River or go to Akwa Ibom, because rivers and people of Akwa Ibom and Cross River, they don't want to be part of your Biafra. So giving us a Biafra that is landlocked, such that if you travel 200 miles from one end of Biafra to the other end of Biafra, you enter another country called Nigeria. We don't want that. It's not in our interest. The Igbos are itinerant people. Itinerant people are people who leave their area and travel far in pursuit of wealth and prosperity. We don't stay at home to try to build. We move further out far. So we don't need barriers. We don't need boundaries to stop us. Indeed, what would be in the interest of the Igbo is for the whole of Africa to be one country. If the whole of Africa is one country, you know what it means? An Igbo man will have shop in Mali, have shop in Sokoto, have shop in Egypt, in Cairo. We'll be moving freely. Absolutely. What the Igbo man needs is bigger territory, larger market. We need to be in Zaire. We need to be running hotels and schools in Zaire, in Mozambique. We don't need those territories. Those country map was created by colonialists to keep you weak. Nkrumah advocated for the United States of Africa. Nkrumah understood that if Africa will become one United States, one country, it will be the most powerful country in the world. Because Africa had the natural resources and everything. Look at India. Indian population above 1 billion. Look at China. Chinese population above 1 billion. If you look at the population of Africa, you find out that if we combine the whole of Africa as a common country, we will be stronger than India stronger than China, stronger than America. So the Igbo man should not be interested in creating boundaries around himself, tightening up the news. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. And in our circumstance, if you create Biafra today, based on grievances, Biafra will be at war with its neighbor. And that neighbor surrounds Biafra completely. All this notion that will be like Israel, it is not true. Unless you don't understand the history of Israel. Israel is nothing without America. Israel is actually American state in the Middle East. We don't have a godfather for Biafra that will be like America. Biafra will be left on its own. So I think it is not worth it. It is not necessary. Indeed, there was a time in the 60s when the Igbos were being pursued and killed everywhere in the country. At that moment, it was necessary to do so. So Jukwu's declaration of Biafra in 1967 was justified. However, trying to reactualize Biafra today is dumb, stupid, and it can't work. And by the way, something else that will shock you. All these discriminations you complain that you are receiving from the Northerners, it will still exist in Biafra. The conflict level, internal conflict level in Biafra will be too intense. I know it, I see it. And that was why recently I gave all of you exercise, but you did not do that exercise, I'm sure. I asked you to pick up a piece of paper and write out the names of 10 people. Write out the names of 10 people who have hurt you, hindered you, stolen from you, betrayed you, cheated you, denied you progress, opportunity, took your land, snatched your wife or your girlfriend. Write their names down. When you write them down, take a look and read. You will not find Hausa man or Fulani man on that list. And if you find a Fulani or Yoruba man on that list, it's going to be 1 or 2. You're going to find that 8 of those who make your life miserable are your tribesmen. The people who make your life unbearable are not Fulani, Yoruba, they are your people. So if we give you a country, it will not solve your problem because your problems are still in your country. So that is the basis upon which I said we don't need Biafra. I hope you understand it. Many people said I'm a traitor. That is stupid argument. I even wrote about that is the stupid kind of reasoning. Traitor what? My enemies, the people that are making my life miserable in Nigeria, half of them, or more than half of them, are Igbos. And the reason up to 5 are not Igbos is because of my level. At your level, all the people that make you miserable are in your village. Absolutely. They are your family members, your extended family members. The person stealing your father's land is not Fulani man, no. It is your uncle. The person snatching your girlfriend or the person sleeping with your wife in your absence is not Fulani man, no. It's your neighbor. And that neighbor is your church member. So you got to think logically. Our problem is, by the way, let us even go to government. Who do you think is denying you development? Who do you think is denying you infrastructure in your state? Do you think it is the federal government? No. No. It's your governor. It's your state government. Down to your local government chairman. They are the people who pocketed the money that could have been used to tie your street. They are the people who pocketed the money that could have been used to give free education to your children. They are the people who pocketed the money that could have been used to facilitate infrastructure to develop the economy in your area. But you never mention the governors. For you, the governors are not your problem, is the president and the Fulanese. It's not reasonable. Now, ESN is killing you in Mpo, in Oka, in Anambra. You leave them and you worry about Boko Haram that is killing people in Kebbi and Zamfara. But your problem is in Mpo. So there is something serious. There's a dichotomy in reasoning. There is something wrong in the way we analyze these problems. You want to leave ESN and fight Boko Haram? Boko Haram hasn't come to your area. It hasn't come to your state. So if you are likely to die in the hands of non-government, the non-government are here. They're your people. They live in your city. So we need peace. And we need to make progress. We need to understand. It will be a tragedy if this new generation, when I see young people in their 20s, you have the internet, you have the AI technology, you have social media, you can conquer the world, you can choose a girlfriend in China, a girlfriend in Brazil, you can live your life. But you allow yourself to be consumed by the same hate and sentiments your fathers had in the 60s, and you're blaming yourself by attacking a Fulani man who doesn't know that you exist. You're attacking a Yoruba man, or you're attacking an Igbo man. Oh, come on. We can't let that happen. In this page, I will continue to be neutral. I'm not doing it because I side anybody. It is because I know enough about history, human history and philosophy. And I know where your problem is. It is not where you think it is. It is not with the Fulanis or the Yorubas. Okay? Your problem is much closer to you. You've got to do something about it. Thank you so much, and God bless.